But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. This is This Week in Men's Rights, or The Week in Men's Rights. I'm here with Elizabeth Hobson. She's one of the British Badger Belles. And we're also going to be expecting Natty. She's going to be on a little bit later, maybe. She's got the kitties to deal with, so once she puts them to bed, she says she'll join us. So for now, though, I have Elizabeth. So, Elizabeth, how are you?
Very well, thank you, dear. How are you?
I'm good. And I love your... I just noticed that you have is that a sweater? You're very patriotic.
Yep. I love your country, man. It's a little chilly over here, so...
Is it? Oh, no,
it is, yeah.
We just... Oh, by the way, I just want to extend a couple of messages to the people that are watching. If there's anyone that is or knows anyone near Anchorage, Alaska, or along the coast there, like whether you're in BC or California, whatever, I hope that you or people are safe. There was a class class 7.0 on the Richter scale earthquake a little while ago. And there were tsunami warnings, and there's actually aftershock still going through. So if you guys are out there, I hope you're safe. And if you know anyone, I guess my heart goes out to you. Hopefully you're okay. I know that that's pretty serious. Like, my wife's mother lives in BC. She's on one of the islands out there, and we were concerned because there was a tsunami warning going out, and it's a pretty big earthquake. There was collapsed streets and everything. So I just want to put that out there right off the bat. Otherwise, though, everything's well. It's warmed up a little bit today. Snow's melted here in Chicago, so we're doing good. So we're going to talk about what's going on in the news, but specifically around men's issues. We have a couple of events that are pretty exciting. But I guess first things first, we should probably talk about this because it just happened yesterday. I have this article from the Mary Sue because I figured the Mary Sue version could be the fun one to read. 3 women, in case you don't know, have now accused Niel Degrasse Tyson, that's right, Black Science Man, has been accused of sexual misconduct. And I'm pretty sure that there is a video that I made, like a stream that I was on, where I've actually made the prediction that was going to happen, that he was going to get accused, because every man that is in the public eye, every public figure that's male is likely going to be accused, especially if there's something to get out of it. But I guess
it's not just,
go ahead.
It's not just sexual misconduct, though, is it? There's
one
actual allegation of rape.
There is, yeah. So we're gonna read the article. So. Yesterday, allegations of sexual misconduct against scientist and celebrity Niel Degrasse Tyson came to light. 2 women have accused him of inappropriate behavior towards them, including touching them without their consent and trying to seduce them. So, apparently trying to seduce a woman is almost basically rape. Of course it is, right? This is the Mary Sue, And this comes on the heels of an accusation that Tyson... So these are after Tyson was accused of raping a woman while they were both grad students, which had widely flown under the radar.
And these 2 other women have, jumped to the defense of the woman who's alleging rape.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've got any more information than I do, but as far as I've seen, there's not any evidence or anything like that. Just the allegation, but because of their experiences with him, they say, yes, he's definitely a predator and he's obviously done it, and we fully support this woman. And I've read the 2 accounts of the other 2 women, and then
yeah,
they just don't scream blatant rapist to me, to be honest. It screams kind of slightly uncomfortable situations, for the women who didn't enjoy them. But, you know, on the other hand, I'm quite aware that they would be quite normal interactions for a lot of people as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know as much as you know. I don't think first off, I don't think there's anything any evidence out there. I'll read through the rest of the Mary Sue article to see if they know something we don't know. But as I understand it, it's all just allegations at this point. People are asking about the volume. Let me know if it sounds better now. So I did raise up Elizabeth's. For some reason, hers was a little bit lower, and it was on my end. So. No, it was on my end, so I'm sure it's fine now. But we'll see what they say. But yeah, we don't. There's, as far as I know, it's just allegations at this point, and you know, we're at the point now. Obviously, we're beyond the point where
there's photographic evidence of one of the events, but it's such a non-event.
Yeah.
Well, they might talk about it more in the article, so I won't go into details until you've finished reading.
Okay, let's take a look. One of the accusers details how Tyson grabbed her arm to study her body-wide tattoo of the solar system. And then tried to find Pluto by following the tattoo into her dress. Mm-hmm. That sounds like rape to me. To ruin his career, make sure he never gets on TV ever again, destroy him. The other speaks about...
You know, apparently on her back. It wasn't like on her breasts or anything like this. And, you know, there was someone who thought it was acceptable enough to be taking photographs rather than intervening. So. Oh,
yeah, of course. And how long ago was this? Because maybe...
I've got a feeling, I have got the date in the last article I read. I've got a feeling she said it was 2015.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Because we weren't in the throes of rape hysteria in 2015. At least like regular people weren't. Yeah, not quite.
We're building up to it still, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The other speaks about how when she was working for Tyson, he invited her to his apartment and allegedly made advances on her. When she confronted him about it the following day, she says that he told her she would never advance through the ranks because she was too distracting. The second accuser did report the event to a sexual harassment hotline. Okay. His first accuser, a woman named Chia Ahmet, says that he drugged and raped her while they were both studying astronomy at the University of Texas in Austin. She publicly accused him during a speaking event in 2010 and was met with dismissal from his fans and supporters, which is detailed in an interview with her that you can read here. So this is just an interview. Despite speaking out on this multiple times and even filing a police report, Ahmet's story has gone mostly unknown. One of the articles on her, cited in the linked interview piece above, uses her spirituality to dismiss her claims. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's just, yeah, all it is just word of mouth stuff right now. So.
I mean, you know, the fact that she's filed a police report certainly makes you go, you know, if that was directly afterwards.
Yes. No, it's true. It is something that, especially because they were in grad school and she could have used I'm assuming the college itself against him, because they were in school at the time, right?
Well, hang on. If they were, yeah, but if this was when he was in grad school, that would have been a long time ago. So could she have?
You're right.
Surely it would have been a police matter back then.
Yeah, according to this, it was in let's see, in 2010. She publicly accused him during a speaking event in 2010.
8 years? Oh, no, she publicly accused him in 2010. Yeah, but the event would have been much earlier, wouldn't it?
Before that. Yes, much earlier. So, it's hard to say, but again...
it's hard to say, but, you know, what's very clear to me in this story is just the way that, you know, this Me Too kind of train operates, where it's like, you know, one accusation is good, but let's throw as many accusations as possible. And, you know, people are just convinced by the kind of rolling weight of more and more and more allegations.
Yes.
which it doesn't work for me, and I don't think it's a valid way of assessing the situations, to be honest, especially when what you're dealing with is very notable people. I think there are far too many motivations that could potentially encourage people to make false allegations, to take things, you know, on face value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, if you look at Christine Blasey Ford, she made an absolute fortune off her allegations against Kavanaugh.
Absolutely.
She also became, you know, a heroine to an awful lot of people. She's set for life in terms of like speaking events and stuff like that.
Yep, it's true. And of course, you know, the feminists and academics and stuff are going to say that she didn't benefit and that Kavanaugh got away with rape, which further allows her to benefit because then she gets to go on TEDx and, you know, say that she was mocked by the president and so on. It's all just really useful to the right people. And I don't know about this woman in this case, though. I mean, there is a chance. I'll always say that there is a chance that, you know, Tyson is guilty. It's entirely possible. But the fact is that, you know, the reason...
Mean, it would make sense of his kind of animosity towards men that he's been displaying over the last few years. You know, if he's actually a rapist, then maybe he's just projecting his own guilt onto every other man in society.
Yeah. Again, if that's true. But this is the reason why we have due process and legal system. You know, it's because otherwise you just have people guessing, and you have this kind of, you know, guilt by mob accusations. The more people who say it happened, the more true it becomes, you know, in the minds of people that are watching. And that just doesn't work. You know, the only thing, like, the other two women are trying to add. So, like, let's go with this, okay? Hypothetically, let's say that he did rape that first woman. Let's say that happened. The crime of rape is not made worse just because more women say he acted in a way that they find inappropriate. That doesn't make the crime worse.
One of them actually used the words creepy. I think it was the one with the tattoo. She said, "Oh, he was creepy," and because he was creepy, I know that he is, you know, a serious sex offender.
Exactly.
Not good enough.
But
I mean, I haven't seen a knee-jerk kind of reaction to any of his employers or anything like that, or anyone he works with yet. Have you?
No. It hasn't affected his career as of yet. And I actually, I remember the original allegation. I actually remember seeing that a long time ago. And we may have even talked about it on the show, the original allegation. And I think that where we sat on it was, well, you know, let them investigate, and if it turns out that he's guilty, then he's guilty, right? And then we just sort of left it alone. But it's kind of like come back when these two additional women accused him. I think it sort of like dug up that old, you know, I guess you could say ghost of previous supposed, you know, sexual assault, rape, whatever you want to call it. And I think that now he has to deal with it. So, you know, originally it didn't seem to impact his career, but I think in the wake of Me Too, it could. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but nothing yet. I mean, as far as I know, Tyson doesn't work for... like what he does right now seems to be he makes appearances. He doesn't work necessarily for a company. At least I don't know about that. But it doesn't. He seems to be too big of a figure to let it affect him. He's almost his own brand, right?
Do you think that he must have like honorary degrees from places that could be retracted and stuff like that? So
yeah.
you know, I would expect if it was like 6 months ago, for sure, that
Mm-hmm.
there would be some kind of um, comeuppance visited upon him. You
Yeah,
know,
for
that it's
sure.
but
Uh,
you know, if nothing does happen, I'll be very encouraged, to be honest.
yeah, I mean, I don't suspect it. Well, we'll have to wait and see because we thought that nothing
Mm,
could happen to Bill Cosby and he went to jail. So,
mm,
but as far as one other thing too is that nothing may happen to him professionally, but the accusations could could have psychological effects on him regardless,
mm,
because when a bunch of
mm,
people like there's studies that have shown that when people are falsely accused of rape and sexual assault, they exhibit psychological symptoms that are similar to those who have actually been raped. So it's because of
mm.
the
Oh yeah,
tremendous
it's a
amount of
definite
fear and
trauma.
anxiety around it.
Mm,
Yeah, around the accusation,
mm,
because we find that act so despicable, that it will affect us to be
mm.
accused of it,
But I mean, without trying to quantify which is worse, it's like at least most of the time with rape, it's contained within a fairly short space of time, whereas a false accusation is something that can last for a long, long
Yeah,
time.
it could
You know
follow
what I
you.
mean? So that's a special kind of
Hmm.
uh, intense trauma for a long time, I would say, that would, yes, definitely be damaging.
Absolutely. Like the Brock Turner thing still comes up. People mention it all the time, even though, one would think that the case was, it was tried, there was a sentence, it was done and over with. But because it did not, the punishment wasn't enough for people, the Brock Turner thing will continue to come up, and he'll have to live with that for
Mm,
the rest of his years. Probably it won't ever end. Like, people will probably see him on the street and say, "You're that rapist, Brock Turner," right?
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
yeah, this stuff is not, it's not something that you can just throw out there willy-nilly. It's very, very powerful stuff socially. It's social death is what I'm talking about, you
mm,
know
mm.
so, and oh, by the way, somebody asked if Neil deGrasse Tyson is an ally. He is a Whammon respecter, yes. He's not
Oh,
as,
big time.
yeah, he's definitely a big Whammon respecter, and this could also be the reason why he suffered the accusation, because simply being in the proximity of feminists, it's like it's a
Mm,
countdown to when they accuse you of rape, because they see rape in everything. You're
yeah.
around them, you're male, it's only a matter of time. So, yes. If you guys have any additional commentary or anything, please send us a super chat and I will read it aloud. So we're going to go on to the next story. But tell me what you guys think about the Neil deGrasse Tyson story. I know it just came up. And yeah, guys, some people, what is it? What is the meme? How does the meme go? Some people say they don't know what Me Too is, but it do, or something like that. It's the Black Science Name meme, but yeah. Let's move on to the next story. So this one is actually kind of huge, but it's really upsetting feminists right now. So
Mm,
Italy's
it's all good things too.
yes, as all good things. That's how you know it's good, if it pisses off feminists. That's how you know it's a good thing. Italy's proposed new divorce law would turn back the clock 50 years on women's rights, critics say. So, if it turns back the clock 50 years women on women's rights, 50 years, then it must be good news. Let's find out. So, Italy's, I know that sounds bad, but it's true. Italy's government is pushing draft legislation that would revolutionize the country's divorce laws, abolishing child support, and taking custody away from parents who badmouth their exes or try to otherwise harm their relationships with their children. The idea behind the bill, which is supported by Italy's governing coalition and has a good chance of becoming law, is to enforce what it describes as, quote, perfect co-parenting, end quote. Children of divorced couples would spend the exact same amount of time living with each parent. Young children currently tend to live with their mothers. and each parent would pay for the children's needs when taking care of them. What? So they split the money too? That sounds like equality.
Sounds so incredibly simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Why has no one thought of this before?
It's like only I guess the Italians came up with it first. I don't know, but this sounds really oppressive to women, despite being equal. If one parent were unable to pay, the wealthier parent would pay for those needs directly rather than writing a check to his or her ex-spouse. What a great idea, you know. The bill's supporters contend that this would make child support obsolete. But the left-leaning opposition and women's groups fear that the bill would harm women. My wife's laughing in the background. Nadia Soma, a representative of Dimitra, an anti-domestic violence center in Turin, wrote for the newspaper Il Fatto... I'm not going to read that. It's Italian stuff. That the Pizza Mozzarella, that the proposed law would turn back the clock 50 years on women's rights. Senator Valeria Valenti of the center-left Democratic Party said it would make life impossible for mothers. Impossible.
What is it with Valenti's?
Yes, it is it with Valenti's. It would make life impossible for mothers. In Italy's conservative society, less than 50% of women work outside of the home, and most of the burden of child rearing falls upon mothers. Because women with children struggle to find stable employment, critics argue that the abolition of child support would raise the poverty. Critics argue that the abolition of child support would raise the poverty rate amongst divorced mothers and could make them unable to provide for their children. Critics fear that the bill could encourage women to stay in abusive marriages rather than opting for a divorce with no child support. All right, well, let's comment on that real quick before I continue with the story. So what do you think? Do you think that any of these things are true? Could this raise the poverty rate? Could it also encourage women to stay in abusive marriages rather than opting for a divorce with no child support?
Well, you know, I think that the current system both incentivizes women to leave perfectly good marriages, you know, that are maybe going through a bit of a tough time that, you know, long-term relationships are supposed to go through, and you're supposed to weather them together. And I think they also encourage men to stay in abusive relationships because they know if they leave them, they're likely to lose their kids and all of their stuff and all of the future money that they might earn. And I also think, you know, if obviously, I mean, you know, they're saying they're going to have 50-50 shared parenting. That's obviously not going to be mandatory. So people will be able to work out their own arrangements if there are arrangements that suit them better.
Of course, yeah.
But, you know, if the culture did shift so that there was more shared parenting, then I would think that the workplace culture would shift as well. And so, you know, mothers who had half of their time off and fathers who had half of their time off and half their time looking after their kids would be similarly disadvantaged.
Yep.
Surely. So, you know, it's not a women's issue here, but it's something that could be addressed through like job shares.
Yep. And it's also, you're right, it's not a women's issue, it's a children's issue. This is actually going to be so much better for the child.
Exactly.
Yes. And, you know, it's funny. You were just talking about how, you know, because the bill is proposing that essentially they just split everything 50-50. And my favorite part is that the wealthier parent, so if there's one that can't sort of pick up the slack, the wealthier parent will compensate, but they don't send a check to the other parent. They pay it directly into whatever for the child. That I love, because a lot of people, and okay, let's be real here. Most of the time, the wealthier parent is the husband because he's the one that's been supporting the family. And since Italy's society is largely conservative, then that means that most of the people who are going to be the ones that have more of the income are going to be the fathers, right? So in those cases, here in the U.S., there is it's very common for women who are divorced to not only collect child support and not only collect alimony, but also collect government, Social Security of some kind, right? So they have all of this income, and they're the ones that decide how it's spent. And I couldn't tell you, like, this is anecdotal, so I can't, I'm not going to say it's evidence, but I know people who have divorced their husbands, taken their money, or not got married but just collect child support, and none of the money that they're getting actually goes to the child. They just spend it on stuff that they want. They buy cars, they buy clothes, and this will.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen it on social media. Comments about what women are going to do with their child support, and I also have many anecdotes. There is one in particular that springs to mind, which is a guy who wasn't made to pay child support because he actually got full custody of all of the children from the marriage that had ended, but he was forced to pay alimony, and he was forced to pay so much that she was actually getting more than he was getting to keep for him and all the children. It's like, how is that justified? There were never any allegations of abuse or anything like that. There was absolutely no reason why she couldn't work. And in fact, just before she went to court, she gave up her job. She was working as like a research chemist or something like this. Like
what?
Some pretty,
that sounds pretty
job.
Yeah, that sounds pretty high end.
She obviously was perfectly capable, but she must have been advised by someone that if you don't have an income, you're not going to need to have an income.
Right.
He's going to sort it out for you, and so that's what she did. And meanwhile, him and his, their children, are just struggling with making ends meet.
Yes, sorry, that was just, it's okay. We just got a subscription or a donation or something. Yeah, we just got a super chat, so it's going to make that sound when we get them. I'll read.
I mean, I think this really, like you say, it's really putting the children first, which is what all of our energy should be put into in these situations.
And really quick to comment on what I'm saying about these women that take the child support, or, in your case with that anecdote where the woman quits her job before to ensure that she's going to get the most money she can while not having to work. It comes down to like the Thomas Sowell quote that I really like, that he says, if you incentivize bad behavior, you will create more bad behavior. So this is not a critique to say that this is how women are, but if you feed into that beast, if you say, well, I will create a system where women can, by the force of, the law, take alimony, take child support, quit their job, like they don't have to work, and it's all, it all goes right to them, then you're going to essentially encourage bad behavior. You're going to incentivize it. This is a woman that you said did.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but you kind of make good behavior a bad decision.
Yeah.
From a kind of, very practical standpoint,
Right, exactly, because it's no longer pragmatic. Right? It loses it loses pragmatism. Like, well, why wouldn't I do things that way?
A superficially bad decision, I hasten to say, because I can't imagine it does anything good for your soul.
Right.
Being the beneficiary of such an arrangement.
Yes. And there was one other thing I wanted to say. This is going to be like a bit of a different kind of comment, not about the event so much, but about feminism and I guess sort of like the left-wing politics, same thing, right? One thing I noticed is that you said, so the article, the criticisms is that, this is going to be bad for women. They're going to be impoverished. They're not going to get the money they need. How are women going to work this out? They're never going to climb out of that hole. They're going to have to stay in abusive marriages, blah, blah, blah. And we need the system as it stands to make sure that they don't essentially, die homeless on the street or something. And when we were talking about the arrangement, you were saying that, the parents can work it out because it's not just that, let's say that you get a divorce under this new bill. And you and your wife get divorced, and let's say that you're trying to work out, when how much time you're going to spend with the kids, right? You can individually, you can make something work that fits within whatever your lifestyles are. So, maybe it doesn't come out to exactly 50-50, but you are put in a position where, because you have that wiggle room of, this is going to be 50-50 no matter what. So there isn't like some on high thing making sure that the husband only sees the kids every other weekend or something like that. But they actually have just like co-parenting. The idea being that the children should be with each parent as often as possible, if not together. But this basically frees up the two individual parents to work out their own way in which to best raise their children, making them the priority. So if the man is like, well, I have to work nights, or I have to like go on a business trip or something, then the mother says, well, I'll pick up the slack for that. Like they work it out at the individual level, and they have all of that room to play. The restrictions are so much that the man is thinking, well, I have, a job where I work these kinds of hours and I have to travel this often or whatever. However, I only get to see my kids once every other weekend, or, a couple days, nights a week or something like that. So I have to, in order to make room for them, I have to like sort of rearrange my life around it. Instead, you can work it out at the most, let's say, at the most individual level between the people that are directly involved with their children. That means that the state is less involved in that. Like they did this 50-50 split, and they like stay out of it essentially, right? And I find it interesting because, and I mean, this is something that I've seen lots of times. Feminists think that everything has to come from power, like on high, some authority. It has to be backed by force. So when
well, I mean, feminists have a very limited concept of power as well. It's like,
yes,
the power of the state or the power of a gun or money. They don't have any concept of kind of sexual power and emotional kind of power,
right,
at all.
No, exactly.
Or, the power that comes with having choice,
right,
which is something that women have in so much more abundance than men generally.
Yes, and so that's why they view this as a threat, because they view it as a threat to women and their interests, the feminist interests, not women's interests, because it doesn't have that, they think that it's power that's being used against them. They think that this will reflect badly on women because the state will impose power. But what the state is doing is essentially it's backing out of the situation. That's why it's doing this
it's leveling the playing field.
Right. Exactly. But because they only see things in terms of the use of governmental or institutional force to essentially create outcomes, they find this a threat for that reason. And I guess what I'm saying is that I like that you framed it in, well, this lets parents, figure out how best to raise their children without having to deal with all of the crazy restraints that the current Western divorce system, puts on them. And so this is a lot better, especially with the money too, because again, there are men in prison, lots of men in prison, because they can't pay their child support, because they can't pay their alimony. And, the amount that a man owes for child support and alimony is based on wages that they may not be earning anymore. So if a man is making a certain amount, and he's paying a percentage of that, and let's say he loses his job, or he accepts a lower position, or he has to change careers, or he decides to start his own business, but he's making a little bit less, it doesn't change how much he owes. So it actually puts him in danger of not being able to pay, which in turn, it puts him in prison. Again, that's backed by the force of the state. If you don't pay your child support and alimony, you go to jail. So this is actually liberating that, but interestingly enough, feminists see it as a threat. They think of it in terms of the same kind of power that they want to exercise.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the other thing is that it can only be good for relationship, that aren't even necessarily in danger of breaking up, or, even if they are in danger of breaking up, but they haven't yet. Because you know, it can't be good for relationships if you're having any kind of conflict or you're trying to work through and resolve problems together. If you both know that one of you has this, you know,
Gun.
yeah,
Yeah,
essentially,
yeah.
to the head of the other, you know, how can you both have honest and good faith kind of conversations together? You know, I mean, ideally you would have so much trust that you can, but that's not always something that people have. But if it is a level playing field, then I think that can only be good for relationships.
No,
And
for
so,
sure.
you know, in a really, you know, utopian situation, this could potentially kind of decrease the divorce rate.
I think it
And you know,
would.
if it does, feminists will be going, see, we told you women would stay in abusive relationships.
Yes, they would. Yeah, and I think it would it would decrease the divorce rate in a couple of ways. One, women will be less likely to file for divorce so quickly, you know, because maybe they think, well, I'm just tired of looking at him, or whatever. He made me angry because he said I look fat in this dress. Like, just whatever it was, even if it's a whole bunch of little things that led up to a boiling point where they realize, well, I could just divorce him and take half his money. I don't have to deal with him, right? Or if they just found somebody else more interesting or whatever. But it would, so they're less likely to do that and more likely to work with their partner to essentially like try to build a stronger relationship, so those little things are less likely to be a problem, and the temptation for like the goodies that come from a divorce won't be there to affect that decision. But also it would also affect women in that their choices on who to marry, they'll be a lot stricter on that as well, because they know that, like, I think that on some level, if you know that no fault divorce will let you just divorce somebody and then they'll have to pay your bills, you know, for however long, you know, the rest of their lives, or 18 years to raise the kid or whatever, potentially, yeah. Then you might be a little bit more encouraged to jump into a marriage that you're not sure will work out. But if you're less, so and maybe I'm wrong about this, you could tell me because you're a woman that's married, so maybe you know more than I do. But if you know that you're jumping into something that is not going to benefit you as much to simply walk away from, like it's not as easy to walk away from without taking on a bunch of additional responsibilities and significantly altering your life, then you're probably going to be more responsible when choosing a husband, because women do choose their husbands, right? So, or at least they choose the men they want to be with.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, the sort of counter to that is it could potentially encourage more men who are in bad relationships or are being abused to actually file for divorce. So it might not affect the divorce rate. It might what it might do is, you know, I assume Italy's the same as like over here and where you are, which is about 70% of divorces initiated by women. It might not do anything to the overall rate, but just level those off a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Who knows? It would be, I hope it goes through. It's going to take between 6 and 17 months, apparently, because Italy's notoriously slow at legislating. But it will be a really interesting experiment. And I'm sure, I have absolutely no doubt, if it happens, which I really hope it does, that it will be really good for children.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully then we won't know what the results are for about a generation or so. But maybe other people will follow suit and we'll move away from this. We'll have to see if it passes. I want to read a super chat, and then I'll do a little bit more of this article, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So Yilva Elfer, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pronounce this right. She gives us $5 and says, let's put that into action in the U.S. and support due process rights. Equality. Thank you, Ilva. Ilva, it's a cute name, Ilva. I think that's right, but I don't know. All right, so I'm going to read a little bit more of this. The proposed law also endorses the disputed notion of parental alienation syndrome, a term first coined in the 1980s by American psychiatrist Richard Gardner. PAS holds that a parent can belittle or badmouth the other parent to the point that her child I'm sorry, I project a little bit, their child becomes hostile and no longer wants to spend time with them. But PAS is not listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and the American Psychological Association has no official position on whether the syndrome is real, citing a lack of evidence that supports its existence. Okay. Critics worry that claims of PAS could be used to strip custody from mothers. Doesn't that assume that mothers are the ones that engage in it, though? I mean,
I mean, they are at the moment because
Mhm.
they're the ones who have the time, basically.
Yeah.
You know, I have no opinion over whether mothers or fathers are more likely to do it, but to, you know, alienate a child, you need to spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not the resident parent, you're going to have a really hard job. You're going to have, a force of personality like no other if you're going to alienate them from the parent that they spend the majority of their time with.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense because they're around the mothers more often.
I mean, that's the first and most important way to resolve parental alienation. The alienated parent and the child have to spend time together, and it can be really difficult. But it's the only way of resolving the situation and trying to heal the child. And I mean, I don't know why it's not in the DMV, whatever it is.
DSM-4? DSM-5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it, are we only on that? But, from what I've seen very convincing evidence that parental alienation syndrome exists. And, very clear evidence that where it has been identified, it's also often comorbid with other mental illnesses which are listed. So it's like it would be quite easy to look at cases where parental alienation was alleged and say, in this demographic, are there more listed kind of diagnoses than in other children or other young adults or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I see. I agree with that. I actually had Amanda Sellars on, who is an Australian woman that runs an organization called Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, which is a lot about parental alienation. She herself was a victim of that. And yeah, she does really great work with her organization. So I think that, maybe what's under dispute is whether or not it's, a syndrome, but it certainly is a phenomenon that happens. And I think it certainly affects children when and it is most often with mothers because they do tend to be the ones that spend the most time with, they spend more time with their children. And it is a kind of social abuse that is created between the mother, between the child and the father, but it doesn't end up reflecting well on either party because
Often
the child,
as well.
yeah, that's right. It doesn't usually end up affecting a child's view of either parent very well because it's going to make them have a negative view of a parent that's spending less time, but it also kind of like when those parents get to spend time with them, they start to think bad things about the other parent as well as they get older, and they say, well, my mother, she really tried to turn me against my dad for some reason, and that it's not good in lots of ways.
If you want a lasting, happy and fruitful relationship with your child, it's not a course of action I recommend at all.
Exactly. It's just toxic in lots of ways.
Yeah, it's seriously bad for the kind of long-term outcomes of children, though. They're far more likely to end up depressed and, having all kinds of problems.
Okay, so the rest of the article kind of goes into the person who is the main sponsor for the bill, and how there is supposedly a Let's see. The bill. This is the Washington Post, guys. So take it for what it is. Senator Simone Simon. It's a man. Simon Pilon of the far right League Party. See, when I hear far right, I just kind of like say, what do you mean, like like center right? Is that what you mean? Yeah. The far right League Party is well known for his hard-line conservatism on social and gender issues. He is one of the organizers of Family Day, a yearly anti-gay marriage event, and often campaigns against what he describes as the gay lobby. They put it in quotes like it's not real. In a recent interview with Vanity Fair, Italy, he said his next step will be proposing a law that would punish women who accuse their husbands of domestic violence if the husbands are not convicted. Pilon has also vowed to make abortion illegal. Wow, he sounds so scary towards women. So scary. So, okay, so let me, I guess we could talk about that briefly. So this law, they're saying he's going to propose a law that would punish women who accuse their husbands of domestic violence if the husbands are not convicted. That sounds like propagandist wordplay. So I don't know what his actual position is. But
I do suspect that what they actually mean is if the allegation is
false,
proven beyond reasonable doubt to be false.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong.
Me too. It could
be if I'm wrong, anyone, but I would eat my hat if that's not what they actually mean, to be honest.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's basically saying, false accusations should not go unpunished. And that's it, If they lie, then there should be I mean, and there is a law, I guess, this perjury. But considering, let's say, the weight of an accusation such as domestic violence or just like assault, I guess you could say, or sexual assault or rape, those are very, very, very serious. And they don't just have legal consequences because they are against the law, but they come with a lot of social consequences too. And we currently, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention.
Yeah, within marriage, they also potentially come with the prospect of losing children.
Yes. Right. And, when you consider all of the damage that can be done with such an accusation, it seems to me that false accusations should not simply go, with a slap on the wrist. They have to, because it just encourages people to do it more often. So there should definitely be a law. Okay, so I don't find that a problem. And then he says he's vowed to make abortion illegal. I don't know. That's maybe. I mean, I don't know this guy, so. And that the only thing left to say about this, I mean, they just kind of like the Washington Post tries to put a little bit of, let's say, poison the well on this issue, on this bill, by essentially trying to make the person who proposed the bill look really bad. But let's just look at the bill for what it is, and then you just form an opinion around that and forget about this guilt by association crap that the media does.
The abortion thing kind of, that raises the question of exactly what do they mean by making abortion illegal? Like, do they mean making abortion illegal even if, the mother's physical health is in peril if she stays pregnant? Do they mean making it illegal
after the third trimester or
I mean, not so long ago, like it was like last year or something, abortion was decriminalized in the UK. So much feminist fanfare, and in practical terms it meant absolutely nothing, because women have been having abortions for years, but it was like you had to say that you wanted an abortion because it would damage or endanger your mental health or something like that. And now you no longer have to say it, but they were going around going, oh, abortion's illegal. It practically speaking, it was entirely legal and quite easy to obtain.
Yeah, It's almost like they're crafting narratives and not telling the truth. So, okay, final thing. To become a law, the bill needs to be approved by both houses of Italy's parliament. Although government support means the bill is likely to pass, it will probably take a while. Italy's notoriously slow political system means that approving a law usually takes from 6 to 17 months. So, if this passes, we'll follow up and let you guys know. But I thought this was a really important law that could set precedent in other. If it becomes law, it could be really important, and it could hopefully be something that other countries will look at and say, "Why don't we do that?" It seems to be working for them, right? So we'll have to check it out. So we're gonna go on to the next story. Do you want to see if Natty is around? Trying to,
you know what? That's exactly what I'm doing now.
That's cool. I'm gonna.
She's seen my message. Let's
All
see
right.
what she says.
All right. In the meantime, guys, I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna throw it out there, anyways. Did you guys hear that? I don't know if you play video games much, Elizabeth. It was a kind of a
not loads on occasion.
Okay. Have you heard of this Fallout 76 game?
I've heard of Fallout.
Okay, so there was a game out called Fallout 76. It's like a always online multiplayer thing, and it was really, a lot of people were very unhappy with it, despite the fact that it's a really expensive full price game. And then this happened. Fallout 76 players were given a lifetime ban for homophobic attacks. So the attackers hurled slurs over voice chat as they assaulted and killed a trio of lower level players. All I have is, I didn't look up the article. I just read the photo that I have. And so imagine, guys, while we're waiting for Natty, imagine being someone who bought the new Fallout, was disappointed in the game because it was crap and disappointing in every way. And then you decide you're going to try and play it anyhow, and you get banned permanently from playing the game that you bought that was already trash because you called someone a faggot online. So, imagine that. You know, I remember, I was even a person that did this, but I pined for the days of Call of Duty on Xbox 360 when kids were calling each other that all day long. It's like the current generation just isn't ready for those days. But yeah, that happened. So I thought I would tell you guys that yes, I don't think that they were talking about the actual like homosexual fags. They were just talking about the ones online. But whatever. So any word from Natty yet?
No word from her, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's okay. She might.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Like, I mean, I've got a friend, a dear friend, who I've known since I was 15, and at age 15, I had an old Amiga that I used to play games on, and we'd play games together, and like we would trash talk the hell out of each other. Like we would really go to some lengths to find the most like inventive and offensive things to say to each other.
Yeah.
And it was such a laugh. Like we could go for absolutely hours, you know, on this game. And he now is a doctor, actually, as in like he's a doctor of something that's really masculine, like systems in military something or other. I don't know what it is. It's Greek to me. But he teaches, and he also is like, he lives in the halls with the students and is available for them if they have any kind of issues.
Yeah.
And they're like forever coming to him going like, oh, you know, someone called me this, someone called me that. And like, these are 18-year-olds. And you know, whenever it happens, he's like, he deals with the situation and then messages me like, I just can't believe it. Like, what is with these kids? They're so soft.
Yes.
It's just bizarre. And, you know, I think it's to do with the kind of, you know, the Jonathan Haidt stuff, all about the kind of coddling and
yes,
the fact that kids these days don't have any time to kind of free play on their own in the company of other children without authority figures present.
Right. They haven't been able to test their
Learn
boundaries
how to manage
and
themselves and
right.
handle themselves.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And real quick on this Fallout thing, to your point, because I actually used to play games with my friends online, competitive and or not even online, just like in the living room, like on the couch, and we would also trash talk each other and try to find the most. I know, try to find the most like the most offensive stuff to say, but it wouldn't, without getting too personal. Like we all knew that we were just fooling around, and I find that just calling someone a fag online, it's so weak sauce. Like that's not, try harder, please. Like I don't understand.
Well,
to
be fair to them, it might have been like more inventive than that, but they might have cut half of the insult out because it was only actually the faggot bit that was
yeah,
beyond the pale.
Yeah, maybe, but
any kind of adjective before that faggot couldn't there?
There could have been a bunch of stuff that preceded it. But I've played online. I still play online now with my wife sometimes, and I've seen people trash talk, and they're not any good. Like it's just it's not there.
So sad.
It is sad. Like they just say you suck, man. It's like wow, that's what you got. Really. Or they'll send me a private message and they say, haha, I killed you. It's like, wow, is that the best you got? So, let's see. Another super chat just came through. Mogon gave us £2 and says, did Elizabeth like her present? Dosh for HB Radio. Well, thank you, Mogon. Did you like your present, Elizabeth? Do you know what this person's talking about?
I think I might. And if it's who I think it is, which it might be with that name, because I recognize the name, then yes, thank you very much.
There you go. And so with that said, no word from Natty. We'll just go into the next thing. If she comes on, then that's great. I can't go too long, though. So this is the big one. I thought this was really exciting. Philip Davies. This is actually from Justice for Men and Boys. So Philip Davies with...
That's a really good site, I found.
Yeah, it is. It's actually a pretty good, very unbiased, and always tells the truth. So Philip Davies with male genital mutilation bombshell in the House of Commons. I accidentally called it Parliament. Was I wrong? I think I said that.
No, the House of Commons. Parliament contains two houses, the House of Commons
and the House of Lords.
House of Lords.
Yeah.
So either is correct.
Okay. All right, cool. So you know what? Since you're here, why don't you tell us about it? Unless you want me to read the quote here.
Well, I mean, to give just a little bit of context, I'll let you read the quote, but we had an adjournment scheduled in the main chamber for, it was either Thursday or Friday after Men's Day, for just half an hour discussion. And, I looked at the schedule and it was like this massive long list of things. And then Men's Day at the end. And I was like, I don't think we're going to get there. And sure enough, we didn't get there. So Philip, from the sounds of, just of what he was saying in his opening address, has been working really hard with people from the Backbench Business Committee to get an actual debate scheduled, which he managed to do. It wasn't in the main chamber, unfortunately. It was in Westminster Hall, but it's still on film and on the Hansard record. That's what's really exciting me at the moment.
Yeah.
Because male genital mutilation, as far as I know, is not a term that's ever been used in the Hansard record. That's completely new. And yeah, why don't you read the quote?
Yep. Okay. So this is an excerpt from the Hansard record of yesterday's. This is yesterday, not yesterday, November 29th. Well, actually, yeah, it was 28th, so 2 days ago. So excerpt of the day before yesterday's International Men's Day debate in the House of Commons from Philip Davies, MP's opening address. So he says, quote, I also want to touch on male circumcision, male genital mutilation, According to a barrister's opinion, carrying out circumcision on males when there is no medical need, non-therapeutic circumcision, is a crime under the Offenses Against the Person Act 1861, being at least actual bodily harm, if not grievous bodily harm. In 1983, Lord Hailsham, the then Lord Chancellor, said of female genital mutilation, quote, "In the case of a minor under the age of 16, there is no possibility that consent is any defense at all. A minor under the age of 16 is not able to consent to the commission upon her of a criminal assault. Neither parental consent nor the consent of the minor would be any defense at all. And if the parents did such a thing, or instigated such a thing, or participated in such a thing, it would only render them liable to criminal penalties too." Official report, House of Lords, 21st of April, 1983, volume 441C677. When I put it to the government in 2016 that female genital mutilation was already illegal before specific laws on the subject were introduced, they agreed that it was. When I then put to them the position regarding boys, they took a different line. They quoted Sir James Munby, who was the president of the Family Division of the High Court, in a case of January 2015, quote, "Whereas it can never be reasonable parenting to inflict any form of FGM on a child, the position is quite different with male circumcision. Society and the law, including family law, are prepared to tolerate non-therapeutic male circumcision performed for religious or even for purely cultural or conventional reasons, while no longer being willing to tolerate female genital mutilation in any of its forms," end quote. And then it continues. This is kind of a long quote. So, as the former barrister who I mentioned earlier also said, it would require a parliamentary override for male circumcision to be legal, and that has never existed. No exemptions to the law of the land are permissible for religious or cultural reasons. The Ministry of Justice went on to say that there was no doubt that female genital mutilation could have a physical and psychological impact on women, and also said that some girls die as a result of the procedure, which is absolutely correct. I do not pretend to be an expert in this field, but I believe that boys have also been reported to have died following a circumcision, and I have seen accounts of the physical and psychological impact of circumcision on men. I understand that the position of the NHS is that the risks associated with routine circumcision, such as infection and excessive bleeding, outweigh any potential benefits. I am mentioning all this because I believe it should be on the record, not least because of the very different approaches to male and female genital mutilation. The government said back in 2016 that they had no current plans to change the law in relation to male circumcision. Given everything I have said, there may be no need to change the law to bring about a change in male circumcisions. However, I would be particularly interested to hear from the minister on that point. There we go.
There you go. He just hit the ball out the court, really, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great statement, and he's basically saying that there's already legal precedent, so we shouldn't be doing this, right? In the first place.
And I think the level of courage is just astounding. He's got balls of steel, that guy.
Yeah. No, Philip Davies just knocked it out of the park. So there's video of this too, right?
There is, yes.
All right.
I've been wondering whether it's going to be viewable outside of the UK, because it's like Parliament Live UK or something, the site.
Oh.
So anyone who's not in the UK, let me know. It's actually, I've posted it on AVFM recently, so I'm sure someone will tell me if it's not.
Yeah, if it's something that only people in the UK can watch, then maybe our Dr. Randomer Cam can get it for us, and then we can put it up on our channel. Yeah, but I'll look for it myself after the show. So, but yeah, that's okay. Cool. Yeah, send me the link. See if it goes through. You can do it now if you like. I mean, not doing anything at the moment. Nothing important. Just hosting a live show. So anyway, so what's next? He says he's wants to talk to, well, he said he'd be interested to hear from the minister on that point.
Yeah, I think that was referring to the minister, Women and Equalities minister. I think. I could be wrong there.
And that the Women and Equalities that's basically the Feminist Party? Is that fair to say?
Well, the Women and Equalities Committee is, I mean, that's why we set up Ladies for Philip Davies, because Philip joined the Women and Equalities Committee, and the first thing that he said was, why don't we rename it the Equalities Committee?
That's right.
And so we wrote to every MP saying, hey, why don't you support Philip? And I actually had the pleasure of writing to Jess Phillips, which was a lark. She didn't respond to me personally, but she did tweet about us shortly after receiving it. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't get to do much on the Women and Equalities Committee because they won't look into anything that he wants to look into, any of the important, genuine equality issues, and instead insist on focusing on, non-issues, basically. Unfortunately.
And, well, I mean, so what were your initial thoughts when you saw this, when you learned about this?
Oh my God. I mean, I was astounded. I genuinely never expected it. And I was also absolutely gutted because I did consider going there and seeing it live. And then I was like, oh, I've been out loads recently. Like, I should stay home because it was kind of, it was at 3 p.m., which is like just before the kids get out of school. So I'd kind of miss them getting home from school and kind of, getting dinner sorted and stuff like that. And I thought, no, I'll just stay in today. And I mean, to have seen that, him saying all of that would have just been like, wow. And, it's like he didn't just mention circumcision. He used the actual proper term, male genital mutilation. And he didn't just do that. He went on and on and on, and just made a devastatingly kind of, accurate and fair and truthful and important statement, which, is, I mean, everybody here, though, is really moved and really encouraged by this news. And, we all just love him so much.
Yes. And, oh, by the way, I did open it, and it looks like I'm able to watch it. But I'm not going to play it now, but I will, I'll get it, and then maybe we can,
that's good news.
Get the segment, and I can see if we can upload it to our channel. So that is exciting. And yeah, it looks like your motherly duties got in the way of you, your commitment to your kids got in the way of you seeing Philip Davies.
I mean, I was talking to Natty on the way to school pickup today, and she kind of had a similar thing, so she didn't end up going. And we were like, from this day forward, we shall never underestimate the ability of Philip Davies to just completely do something really unpredictable and surprise us. And any chance we get, we're going to be where he is.
Absolutely. Yes. Awesome. I'm excited. I'm really excited about this. This is great. It's like, I swear, it feels, maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic, but it feels like things are moving slowly in the right direction, The fact that this man could just make this statement in front of the House of Commons without, or, at least in there, and it's on tape and everyone saw it, and could see it, it's huge. I mean, and I think if anything, MGM is it should be the easiest men's issue to get sorted out. It should be.
Well, it should
And
be, yeah.
yeah.
It definitely should be. And I mean, it's part of a trend as well. There have been rumblings all over Europe, like
Mm-hmm.
over the last decade or something, with the Cologne ruling in Germany when they banned, or, a court ruled that circumcision was illegal, and, the legislators then decided to come in and make a law to make it legal, which was a shame. But there was, I think it was Denmark, where a survey was carried out, and like the majority of the population supported a ban on circumcision. Um, Something went on in Iceland as well. That
Mm-hmm.
that escapes me. I think it was something like they came close to banning it, but these things keep happening, and at some point it's gonna stick. And I mean, God, I mean, it'd be lovely anywhere, but the UK seems particularly well situated. Mind you, I say that obviously in Germany, it was illegal as well until they
Mm-hmm.
made it legal.
Yeah,
So
in the
who
U.S.,
knows?
we in the U.S. it looks like we're taking a step back because there was a recent ruling on female genital mutilation that you saw that story,
Yeah.
right? Where the
Yeah, of course
Islamists.
I saw it.
Yeah, yeah.
Did
So,
did you see the Brian D. Earp video on it? It's
mm-mm.
not long. It's called like, did a US judge just make FGM legal? And he says basically that he hasn't just made FGM legal. What he
No.
said was that the FGM law is unconstitutional, for various reasons. The one that sticks in my head is because you have um, a law over there, or an amendment that says that you can't be discriminated against on the basis of sex.
Right.
And having a law that prohibits FGM but allows MGM obviously is discriminating based on sex.
Yep.
So that can't be done. But, Brian says that, FGM is still illegal under assault law and under child abuse law in some states. So,
Well,
and,
yeah.
he also talks about how this was like an inevitable step, um, and something that was going to have to happen. And on the road to protecting all children, it's a step forward, actually, he
Mm-hmm.
thinks.
Well,
Mm.
what I think that what I see as the good that will come out of it is, for one, even though that there were plenty of articles written about it saying that judge just made that legal, he didn't, because you're right, and another reason is because the federal government can't
Mm-hmm.
do that. It always goes down to the states, right? And no states are going to make FGM legal. And in fact, it will probably cause people to re-examine MGM as well. They'll
Yeah.
probably take
Yeah.
another look at it, but it's definitely not going to pass. But the thing that's most interesting to me about that story is that of the 8 people that were the defendants in that case, that were the
Mm.
Muslims, right? The
Mm.
7 of them were women, and
Mm-hmm.
including the surgeon, the doctor that was performing the
Mm-hmm.
surgery. And I wonder, I don't think people are going to catch this, but I hope that people take note that, under in Islam, women are in fact, they have a great deal of their own influence in terms of like the culture, and they're usually heavily involved with this, with FGM, MGM, like all making Islamist terrorists, etc. They're as much a part of it as the men. So, and that's me
Yeah, well,
put.
I mean, with regards to FGM, I've seen studies from various countries that cut their girls, and the women support it in greater numbers than the men
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yep.
I mean, what's in it for a man?
Well, exactly.
If you're looking at, the more severe forms of FGM, then, men are looking at having wives who find sex painful. What man wants that?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Generally,
Mm.
that men usually step aside when it comes to a lot of these things and let the
Mm.
women take the, like, again, when it comes to abortion, more women, more in the U.S., more women are pro-life than men, far
Mhm.
more. So, And men usually just kind of go along with it because, you know, they want to have sex with women, so they want to agree. So anyway, with that said, it's unfortunate that Natty couldn't make it, but we do have to bring this to a close. We've been going for about an hour. So I want to thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for coming on and you know, talking about this stuff with me.
Always a pleasure.
All right. And I want to thank you guys for coming on and watching. Please leave us a comment. What do you think about the stories? What do you think about the Italy bill, Niel deGrasse Tyson, and the Philip Davies statement? I think that that's pretty exciting stuff. And yeah, with that said, give us a sub. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Not that it means much, but hey, it helps maybe. I don't know. Think of it as a placebo. And leave us a comment with your thoughts on the story. Thanks again for coming on This Week in Men's Rights. I have been Brian, and that lovely lady is Elizabeth, and we will talk to you guys very soon.